Donald Trump just loves the consequence of revenge, right? But he's the epitome of that guy we all knew as kids who could dish it out, but he couldn't take it. That is exactly what he has shown in this breaking story, because the chickens have come home to roost and it's time to cough it up from the cash hold. Remember when he said this on the precipice of the SCOTUS decision about tariffs right here?
The Supreme Court is going to hear arguments this week on whether you have the authority to impose these sweeping tariffs without congressional approval. The lower courts have ruled against you. That's why it's at the Supreme Court right now.
Very close rulings, yeah. I think it's the most important subject discussed by the Supreme Court in 100 years.
More important than voter rights or Roe v. Wade? Because what Trump wants is total control. Here.
Then I have an Article 2 where I have the right to do whatever I want as president, but I don't even talk about that.
It's a thing called Article 2. Nobody ever mentions Article 2.
More importantly, Article 2 allows me to do whatever I want.
It gives me all of these rights at a level that nobody has ever seen before.
That is so on brand for Trump. He'll say he doesn't talk about it while he's talking about it, and then wants to go destroy other countries around the world. This.
But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country destroying embargo. I can embargo.
Then the Supreme Court, for one singular moment, decided not to be complete sycophants and made this decision.
President Trump is slamming the Supreme Court this morning after their bombshell ruling on Friday. That ruling blocked his across-the-board tariff. The president then took to social media, calling the high court incompetent. He said they did a great job for the wrong people, and for that, they should be ashamed of themselves. He went on to say, let the Supreme Court keep making decisions that are so bad and deleterious to the future of our nation. I have a job to do.
And Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, invented this amazing reasoning as to why we're in a state of national emergency, but we're not.
The tariff portion of this. The president, as you well know, has justified his authority to impose previous tariffs without going to Congress by declaring national emergencies. What is the national emergency that justifies these new slate of tariffs?
The national emergency is avoiding a national emergency. It is a strategic decision by the president.
And Trump truly shows his ignorance right here.
I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1.
Yeah, the reason why you can't charge $1, Trump, without Congress's approval is because we, the Americans, pay for it, which is why SCOTUS made the decision. Except now, in this breaking story, even though you want to try to double down and pretend you don't have to listen to the Supreme Court, you want to be dictator clown, this breaking story goes to show, yep, it's time to cough that cash back up, my brother, right here. Scott Bessent given official demand to fork over rebates after Supreme Court's smackdown. Senate Democrats served the Trump administration notice that refunds should start flowing to U.S. companies who paid for the president's tariffs. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, DNY, and other top Democrats, including Senator Ron Wyden, DOR, sent a letter to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent demanding tariff refunds begin immediately following Supreme Court's bombshell ruling that struck down President Donald Trump's tariff regime, reported Punchbowl News. The court ruled 6-3 last week that Trump lacked the authority to invoke the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, to impose tariffs. And while Trump quickly pivoted to alternative legal authorities to continue his trade war, the question of whether businesses will receive refunds for illegally collected tariff revenue remains unresolved. Democrats called Bessent's public statements and the administration's delay on refunds unacceptable. Bessent has deflected responsibility, claiming lower courts will decide whether revenue must be returned, a position Democrats are targeting as evasive. The tariff refund has become a centerpiece of Democratic strategy heading into midterms. Democrats have argued for months that Trump's trade wars directly fuel inflation and rising costs for consumers, but the Supreme Court ruling provided them a powerful political cudgel to attack Republican economic management. However, Democrats face structural limitations as a minority party. Senate Democrats lack the votes to pass standalone legislation mandating refunds, though they've pledged to block any congressional approval needed to extend Trump's new tariffs beyond 150 days under the Trade Act of 1974. House Democrats have more aggressive tools available, including discharge petitions to force floor votes on legislation mandating refunds and ending Trump's new global tariffs.
Several bills have already been introduced pursuing both objectives. A handful of Republicans in both chambers have shown willingness to break ranks on tariffs, suggesting potential bipartisan pressure exists. Yet without significant GOP defections, Democrats' ability to compel refunds legislatively remains minimal. The battle will likely shift to courts, public pressure, and campaign messaging as 2026 midterms approach.
And this is going to be one of the most interesting fights in America ever, between a guy who's a wannabe mob boss and who loves money and power, taking on the corporate capitalism and the corporate oligarchy we all live under, who also like power and to keep their money, because now they want their money back. And the Supreme Court said, which is the truth, they deserve it. Yeah, because he did it without congressional approval. This is going to get, as I like to say, intriguing for intriguing. You guys like and share the video. Stay frosty.